I want everyone to start doing a small exercise at the beginning of this video. Sit back, relax, and start thinking of your life, where you are now and how you've progressed from your own childhood to the point where you are at now. This progression and this character development, what was it caused by? Some events are there and they are just fated to happen for you to learn how to be a better person, certainly. But what of the rest? Your school, your job, your friends? What makes them part of your life right now? Some things are there for a very random reason, sadly. But for all the rest, it's because of your choices. You decided to study harder to get that dream college. You decided to start talking more to a certain person so you can become friends. You decided to start working out to get in a better shape. The difference between you and me and everybody else in this world is our own choices. And since I believe you all understood that I'm trying to draw parallels between real life and games, you guessed right. I want to speak of choice-driven games because it was totally my own choice. And yes, I've decided to play my intro after I introduced the subject of this episode. It was my own choice at this, so let's get started.
You may run for a long time, run on for a long time, run on for a long time. Let me tell you that God's gonna cut you down. Let me tell you that God's gonna cut you down.
Now first, the context. Let's just put things into context and explain what these games are. These games are a form of content. They are called interactive storytelling media, which is a form of digital entertainment in which the storyline is predetermined and each player lives a different experience based on their own actions and decisions in the setting. Now let's go back a bit to the dark ages of entertainment.
Yeah, it's rewind time.
In the early 1980s, Michael Bowitz worked on an interactive storytelling program called Universe. Characters mainly had stats, a setting, and objectives in what he called a plot fragment. These are narratives that are predefined. Put simply, once a choice is made, the program executes the plot fragment relative to that choice you make. Source material in the description. From then till the 2000s, work on interactive entertainment was only on its research level. 2006 was the year the public came in contact with the first published interactive storytelling game. It was called Facade, where the players interact with two characters and the sum of their actions, of course, they influence the ending that you get. It was plain and simple. And then many games have tried to put on the mantle and decided to give players interactive experiences, giving them the feeling of control, unlike any game before, where you are passively subject to the narrative. And the idea isn't about giving the player choices that would change the outcome alone. It's about putting something in stakes, not stacks. Engaging the player emotionally into challenging his own perception of right and wrong, just trying to push the boundaries of thinking that this is just a game. It's about making the player feel like it's more than just a button press. Now games, of course, they have done so in different ways, trying to make the decision-making moment as real as possible. Maybe by limiting your time or locking some choices you wouldn't know that you had unless you did something beforehand, like a side quest perhaps, or maybe leveled some kind of skill that you've been ignoring the whole game. but the concept is overall still the same. From Life is Strange and every other Telltale game that are really axed around the choices that you make, with no big gameplay diversity, and to other games with a larger implementation of your choices, such as Mass Effect or the upcoming Dying Light 2, in which your choices change the environment and other gameplay mechanics, of course. It's all about making a choice at a moment. You know, you're meant to take a choice and you know it. But in real life, it's really not the case. You're not faced with a prompt that tells you this choice you're making, bam, it's gonna change your future. And sadly, unlike any other game, there is no quick save. And unlike Life is Strange, there is no rewind. That's what makes life different in games. Now, life is all about going around and making decisions on the go, without even realizing it sometimes, from the choice that we make in the morning of what we want to have for breakfast to the site on which we are going to sleep at night. And this is what interests me more. I wanted to talk about games that made you take subtle decisions without even realizing it. And the game that comes to my mind is actually Metal Gear Solid. And if I were to speak about this game, it would take me a whole other episode, because I just love this game and it has so many mechanics that go overlooked. To put you into context, Metal Gear Solid 5 makes you play a character called Venom Snake. This soldier has been through an accident, and this accident caused him to have a bone shrapnel in his head that looks like a horn. The thing that we do not realize as players is that this horn represents how good you are in the game. I don't mean by good the fact that you play in a good way, but whether your actions are good or evil. If you go on a killing rampage, the horn grows bigger. If you do not, it grows smaller. It's as simple as that. And at a certain point, I kind of felt an urge to protect my own military base. So I was faced with the option to either build or not build a nuclear warhead. So I was like, yeah, why not? Let's just build a nuclear warhead and every other player will be afraid of me. And to my surprise, when I started the game the next session, I was faced with a Venom Snake that looked bloody with a giant horn on his head, and I was like, oh, I think my last playing session was kind of bloody. So I tried to wash it off and it just didn't come off. I stayed bloody, and I couldn't handle looking at my own character like that, all red and looking like a literal demon. When I looked it up on the internet, I realized that making a nuclear warhead is regarded as the worst action that you can take in this game. So it just bumps up the numbers of bad deeds that you do, like the counter of your bad deeds in the game, and it makes you look like a demon. And since then I just started working ceaselessly to get myself back to my neutral position, to become a neutral player, something normal. I changed my playstyle, I started playing with more stealth, started stunning more enemies, and to be honest, it changed the whole experience of the game to me. It made me feel like I'm playing a whole new game. Now I have to care for the bodies that I leave behind and hide them from the other soldiers, and it just changed the whole experience overall. Bloodborne made me realize that the story is something that can never be happy. Your best choice of an ending is just to pretend nothing happened and forget your whole journey was ever a thing. And the other endings see you either taking the mantle of the very final boss that you are fighting, or becoming something that is beyond your own understanding. But beyond that, every single side story in this game ends in a very bad way. You can think that you are, for example, doing the right thing, by, for example, sending some random characters to a place where you think it's safe, to a shelter. But you forget that the characters make their own choices as well, and regardless of your will to save them or not, some characters willingly choose to throw themselves into chaos. This is something that I learned the hard way in real life, after certain recent experiences, and years after playing this game. Being a protagonist that always helps others in games makes us think that it's also the right thing to do in real life, but it really isn't. Not all what is broken needs fixing. Each person is his own protagonist in life. They make their own choices, whether they are aware or not of the consequences. Whether we perceive them as good decisions or not, one should not help someone who isn't asking for help. And that's something you won't learn in many games, because they make you feel like your choices are the only thing that matters. But to the other person, their choices matter to them as well. Trying to always be a hero sometimes isn't the right thing to do. And drawing this parallel made me feel how much games can be interpreted differently at any time you try to look at them. It's really hard for me to speak of this subject, because there's so much to speak of. Many games do it in a variety of different ways, and they axe their choice making around different concepts. It's mainly around good choices and bad choices, or evil ones. Like, for example, driving the narratives in Telltale games, and choosing who to spare and who to kill off in Until Dawn, to the small romantic choices of who to date and who to not in some games. But to me, this isn't the only time we make choices. You see, the weapon you choose, the way you play it, the builds that you make, and the clothes that you put on, all these are elements that make the experience feel more personal. I remember at some point back in the day, I would willingly fall off a Colossi in Shadow of the Colossus, just to make the fight feel more real. I would choose a less powerful weapon to fight in Darksiders 2. I even made a no weapon run in Metal Gear Solid 3 after unlocking everything there is to unlock in this game. You see, choices aren't always about being given a prompt to choose between multiple scenarios or something like that. Sometimes it's the small things we unconsciously do to make the game feel and play better. It's what we do to bend the game experience into something that represents us a little bit more. It's when you play the game knowing completely you have no control over the outcome of the story, but reaching that final outcome in your own way, giving your character its own personality. There is a fusion of what the narrative wants him to be and what you want him to be. And that's exactly what life is about. Having little to no control over the outcome of the story, yet living it the way we feel like it's meant to be lived, shaping our lives with our own choices. And our choices in life reflect who we truly are, from the clothing style to the kind of people that we befriend. It's the human being's ultimate form of self-expression, bending not the ending of the game, but how the game plays while it lasts. Our choices don't change the ending, but they change the way our lives feel. And the ending? I don't think it would really matter. After all, we won't live to see what happens after our game ends. So make sure you make the right choices, but still embrace the wrong ones you made, because maybe they unlocked some new skills you never knew you could have had. And as always, thanks for watching.